I guess I've had the benefit over the past 6 to 12 months of having many, many one-on-one conversations with people who I would say in their mid-40s and above, who are really starting to get very concerned about their retirement. Okay. And so when I think about retirement in this country, in Australia, we have what's called superannuation. And in the US, they have a similar thing called a 401k. But essentially, it's this promise that when we get to retirement age, we're going to have this nest egg, this pool of savings or capital, whatever it might be, that is going to sustain us and take care of us into retirement and hopefully for the rest of our life. But the problem is that that whole system is really broken now. In fact, I would go as far as to say we've actually been sold a lie. And so, a lot of the conversations I have with people these days, Robin, are around restructuring their thinking, first of all, in terms of realizing that the old system that we've had and that we've depended on is now broken. So understanding that, and we can go into some facts and figures around that, particularly in Australia, figures that I'm familiar with about, why most Australians realize on the eve of retirement, they simply don't have enough. We can talk about that, but it's about rethinking, and realizing that we're moving into a new era. And that takes an understanding of the history of money and the legacy financial system and TradFi and that entire system that we've entrusted our financial lives to, right? And most of us have given it no thought. And so we get to this place where we start to think to ourselves, hold on a minute, I've just been working for the past 20, 30, maybe even 40 years. And now I'm starting to think to myself, how long is this going to go on for? Am I actually going to be able to retire? What is the very real prospect of retirees being able to leave a financial legacy for their family and their kids? So I know there's a bit to unpack there, Robin, but it's all about realizing that the old system is broken. Traditional superannuation is not keeping up with real inflation. And most people have no idea about that one very important fact. And once we get through that, we then talk about why Bitcoin is a solution. And for me, Bitcoin is front and center in the conversation for the simple reason that over the past 10 to 15 years since Bitcoin's been around, it has proven to be the best performing asset. And I don't like using or considering Bitcoin as an asset. Most people think of it as an asset. We know that it's actually a monetary transformation, a monetary revolution. It's actually a protocol. But let's say that it's an asset. When you compare it against all of the other assets and stores of value, what we've seen is that Bitcoin has outperformed everything, not by a small margin, but by multiples, something like 8 to 9 times over the past decade. And so for anybody who's sitting there starting to think to themselves, will I have enough in retirement? How do I change the trajectory of my financial future if I'm in my mid-40s, I'm in my early 50s? How do I do that before it's too late? Bitcoin is the very thing that I believe provides that opportunity.
I love your framing of the world is shifting, and I 100% believe that. But it's sometimes hard to see, like I think sometimes we are very strong into this Bitcoin bubble and we see all the problems with TradFi. But if I think about the average, like 45-year-old Austrian, or like even, it's probably the same around Australia and America and Canada, all like the Western Hemisphere, I would imagine the experience is quite the same, where they have been paying into a pension system that they might be confident that they might get back or might be not confident that they get back, but their financial system mostly worked. So they have inflation, they're struggling to keep up with bills, but I'm not sure if everyone actually gets the connection that they're struggling and that inflation is one of the main problems of that.
Here we are 16 years on, and this protocol that was gifted to the world, and we don't know who Satoshi is. We can speculate, but we don't know, and many believe that Satoshi is no longer with us. But the reality is that we don't need to know. All we need to know is that we have this protocol that was a gift to humanity that is now available to all of us at any level and at any time. There are people in Africa right now who are trading in Satoshis. Why? Because they don't trust their currency anymore. If you've had your savings and your currency and your future decimated due to hyperinflation in countries like Argentina, Zimbabwe, Turkey, Lebanon, Venezuela, I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. It's just that we haven't experienced it in Australia. Americans haven't experienced it. Most of the European countries in the last 50 years haven't really experienced it. And so we think, well, that's just a problem for Africa. Well, that's just a problem for Lebanon. But it's not. It's not. It's a problem that's coming to each and every one of us.
People ask me all the time, like, what is the number that you need to retire on Bitcoin? And of course, there's a lot of variables to that. First of all, like, where do you live? How much expenses do you have? Like, when do you want to retire? How much life do you have left? Like, it makes a difference if you're 70 or like 30 years old, of like how much runway you have. Like, there's a lot of variables in there. So just to preface that, I do not think there is one number for them all,
No.
obviously. But I found that from Sminston with, he was also on the podcast, I think just like once or twice. And he, wait, can we make that a little bit more beautiful? Like that. Yeah, that looks good. And he brought this up where he has those different charts of figuring out like how much Bitcoin do you need to retire at certain time frames. Now 2035 is an interesting time frame because it's just like 9 years. Like it's 9 to 10 years ahead. It's not that long. It's like if you're now like 40, it's like when you're 50, you already reached that. If you're now 30, like you reached in 10 years. 10 years seems maybe long, but it's like it will go faster than you might think. And he actually put it up in age brackets and in country brackets, which I freaking love. And so I just wanted to bring that up as maybe as a guide to the question that I will ask you with, like, how do you tackle the question of how much Bitcoin you need to retire? Like, what is your framework to think about? How many Bitcoin I might need to retire and at certain ages?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I tend not to focus on the number of Bitcoin. I tend to focus on what most people are familiar with in the first instance. Okay, while they're still getting their head around this, our frame of reference for most of us is still dollars. Okay, and so when I say, you know, you can set yourself up with a $2 million or a $5 million Bitcoin nest egg in the next 10 years, people understand what that means, right? If I say, you know, you need 3 Bitcoin to retire, and that's going to be worth whatever it's going to be in 10 years, people struggle with that because they haven't really got to that level of understanding yet around scarcity and hard cap and issuance of Bitcoin, and you know what that means in the I guess the ownership structure of the greater pie of Bitcoin as a store of value globally and all of that kind of stuff. And so I just focus on 2 things. Primarily, I utilize the reverse CAGR calculator, okay, which is a simple tool that you'll find. Just Google reverse CAGR or CAGR CAGR calculator. And I also post it as a default in my videos on YouTube, and a lot of people just find it very clarifying to just run some numbers. Now, the reverse CAGR calculator just essentially asks for 3 fields. The first thing it wants to know is how much capital are you looking to deploy right now? How many dollars are you putting into Bitcoin right now? Okay, and we'll come back to that because I've got some numbers here for you, Robin. But how much am I putting into Bitcoin right now in dollars? What is the expected CAGR, compound annual growth rate, that you anticipate Bitcoin will have over the next whatever period is? In the field below that, it wants you to put how many years? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, how many years? So how much capital have I got? What is the expected compound annual growth rate that Bitcoin is going to have into the future? And in what time period are you looking to retire? Okay, is it 10 years from now, or is it 12, or is it 15? And when you do that and you understand a little about Bitcoin's price history and its growth rate history, and there's some great tools available online to be able to get clear on what those figures are. But just in a nutshell, over the past 5 to 10 years, Bitcoin's CAGR, compound annual growth rate, has averaged somewhere between 50 and 60%. Okay. Every other asset on earth, on average, and I'm talking about real estate, stocks, bonds, gold, silver, fine art, collectibles, pretty much anywhere where people choose to store their savings, their value as an asset, everything else has averaged somewhere between 7 and 8%. That's over the past 10 years, okay? Now, we know that past history does not always guarantee future results, okay, in anything. But we know that the future usually rhymes with the past. There's usually some pattern that resembles what is going to happen in the future.
The first thing that every Bitcoiner does, and the most important activity that every Bitcoiner keeps on doing, is buying Bitcoin. And I personally use Relay to buy and sometimes also spend or sell my Bitcoin. And there are 2 main reasons why I do so. The first one is it's Bitcoin only. They do not do any shit coins. They do not do any cryptos, any stocks, or anything else. This is a tool, an app that is fully focused only and solely on Bitcoin. The second one is self-custody. They give you the keys to your Bitcoin the moment you buy them. You never give them the control over your Bitcoin, and you don't have to trust them because you can verify that you and only you have the keys to your Bitcoin. There's no third-party risk. There's no freezing of your assets. There's no rug pulling. There's nothing of that. Download Relay, the app, on your phone, or go to relay.app on your browser and use code Robin to save fees and get cheaper Bitcoin. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called micro-seed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With micro-seed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today, and you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io.